So many leaders talk about overwhelm, and yet when I talk to these leaders, they're not looking for vacation or downtime or massages or all the other self-care solutions. The number one thing I hear is if every member on my team was performing well, my life would be great. So how do you manage the performance of your team? If that was something that we were covering in executive coaching, my first question to you would be, how do you define performance? And it's not just a theoretical exercise. See, performance management or managing the performance of your team starts with clarifying expectations. And before you can clarify expectations, are you clear about what performance means to you? For example, when you think of your team's performance, are you thinking of absolute performance or relative performance? Let's take this example. Imagine you were leading a sales team and you have set a target that every single person needs to close 70% of their entire portfolio. So if all members were closing at 70% rate, would you consider this a high-performing team? If that's the case, then you are looking at absolute performance of every single individual. Now, on that team, if you have someone who is closing at a 90% rate, congratulations, you have an exceptional performer. But is that going to skew your expectations of comparing everyone else's performance to this person who is closing at 90%? If that is the case, you have let this comparative relative performance dilute your expectations of what a high-performing team is. My invitation would be, if you have given it due thought in coming up with that target, as long as your team is meeting that target, you have every reason to be happy with the performance of this team. At the same time, you want to recognize this high exceptional performer who is closing at 90%. Let that be celebrated, but let that not take away the joy of the performance of the rest of the team. Now, the interesting part is when leaders talk about the challenges with managing their team, sometimes, it is about what needs to be done. Are people performing what their expectations are? But the largest amount of time and energy is sucked in managing the interpersonal relationships, or very soft, there's nothing soft about these skills, but soft skills of how people show up. So the second invitation around your definition of performance is balancing performance's task, what needs to be done, and contextual, how you want people to do it. Now imagine this 90% closer in your sales team. Incredible, having a brilliant, exceptional performer. But if they are unkind and have no support, don't offer any support or encouragement to the rest of the team, and in fact maybe even have an attitude that you should kiss the ground I walk on because I contribute disproportionately to the success of this team, that takes away the joy of having an exceptional performer. You wouldn't even see this as performance, because just because someone does what needs to be done does not satisfy the requirements of what you expect this person to perform, because they also need to align with your expectations of how they behave and whether it is aligned with the values of the team and the values of your organization. Because after all, those relationships will dictate the long-term success of your team. So when we're looking at performance, my invitation, focus on your absolute performance and focus on performance in a comprehensive way, which is both the task and the contextual performance. Now, once you have that clarity, the first thing in managing the performance of your team starts with clarifying expectations. I know it sounds very obvious, but you know how many people actually just assume that you're hired to do a job. People should know what they should be doing. They should know how they should behave. They should know that they should do their very best to maximize the outcomes that they can deliver at work. But the reality is people are different. Some people may not be maximizers, where they're not looking for every possible idea to get the most optimal results. They may be satisficers, people who will take the path of least resistance to get the job done to the expectations that you have articulated or that they believe you are expecting. The best way to clarify expectations is to actually articulate it. Now, if we talk about the sales team example, the 70% closing rate expectation, pretty clear. Now, not every team has the luxury of quantitative targets that clarify expectations. But even in that case, what if half of the team gets their 70% closing on high ticket items, things that you actually want them to sell, things that create the greatest gains with the least amount of effort from the organization, as compared to others who may be achieving that 70% rate from closing the low ticket items? Now, it is also possible that you may have variability of performance in whether people are really putting the client first. The products and services you're selling, does the client actually need them? Are you being mindful in serving the client as compared to just meeting your sales quota? See, you thought 70% was clear enough, but it is your daily activity as a manager, the conversations that you're having with your team, to level set, to clarify the details of what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, so that people can meet and exceed those expectations. Once you've clarified those expectations, the second step is managing them, both your own and other people's performance expectations. So the idea is not that you're going to watch every move they make. No, micromanaging has not served anybody ever. But at the same time, as a leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that your employees are on target. So if you're looking at that 70% closing rate on a quarterly basis, you don't want to be surprised. There are some process metrics. Things, how many leads are they reaching out to? How many leads do they have in the pipeline? What type of outreach are they doing? All those indicators will dictate whether somebody can close at a 70% rate or not. So instead of having to worry about, are people performing? Are we going to meet the targets that we've set out? You actually land with confidence because you have clarified for yourself and your team how to build the confidence that they will be able to close. See, this is the interesting thing about performance, right? It's not like school, where the instructor or teacher sets out standards and then some people meet them and others fail, separating the wheat from the chaff. That is not true for organizations. We need everyone to succeed at work so that you can succeed, so that your organization succeeds. And if that is the case, then it is in your best interest to articulate in as much detail and as much clarity what your expectations are, and set those process metrics so that if somebody is not meeting those, you're not going to be surprised. But more than that, it gives you meaningful opportunities to intervene and support those people. Managing performance is not just knowing whether a person is getting their work done or not. It's also being able to identify if somebody has an opportunity, whether if they're not succeeding at one of the stages that leads to the outcome, is it because they're not motivated? Is it that they don't have the skills or abilities to do that work? Or is it something in the context that is inhibiting them from accomplishing their goals? You can then help those employees with one or a combination of those strategies so that they can individually perform and exceed those expectations. Besides that, the other part is if you have that 90% closer, but that person is unkind or not supportive of the team, or trying to upsell to a client without acknowledging what the client needs, those are not the behaviors that you want in, doesn't matter, even your most brilliant performer. So when you have these performance conversations, are you balancing what people are doing with how you want them to do it? Because when you hear or observe behaviors that are not aligned with your team values, you want to intervene early. Nobody wants to have difficult conversations, but trust me, the conversation is going to be so much harder once it becomes an established pattern. What is worse is you may not just be addressing that one conversation with one person. If that goes unchecked, it may create an entire team culture that is not productive, in fact, counterproductive to your goals. So when you're managing performance, you start managing not just for what people do, but how they do it. So I hope this gives you some perspective about managing your team's performance starts with you being very clear about how you define performance, absolute, not relative, hopefully, and comprehensively, both task and contextual performance. And then clarifying those expectations in a routine way. That is the manager's job, to get work done through other people. So the more you can be clear and ensure that your team members have similar understanding of what you want or expect of them, so that they can deliver on it. And when they're doing that, having those process metrics so that you can find opportunities where you need to intervene and support those team members to perform. And when you have those exceptional performers, recognizing the discretionary effort that those people have expended, setting that high bar. But at the same time, not making other people feel bad because you have been mindful of setting the targets of what is expected. You do that, you are hopefully going to have a very cohesive, high-performing team that managing a team like that would be a pleasure and joy. That fulfills you. If you're curious about other things that we talk about in executive coaching, please stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and I will be sharing more insights about challenges that leaders like you are dealing with and setting you up for success. Thank you for watching.